Greetings, welcome, and good day. You are now tuned into the 16th episode of the Season Vet Podcast. I'm so happy you could make it to another chapter of this show. This week, I'm proud to bring you one of the most anticipated and requested episodes of this show's time. So many times, when I reach out to interview a Coast Guard lady, almost without fail, one of the names that gets brought up in conversation is the lady I get to bring to you today. You want to know if I've contacted her, you want to know if I've spoken to her. Two of y'all even had the audacity to ask if I knew her. Girl, yes, we all know who Lisa Spotwood is. And honestly, that says a lot for a woman who was not only not an officer, but also did not stay in more than the required 20 years that it takes to retire. Master Chief Lisa Spotwood came into the Coast Guard in 1986 and within 4.5 years made E6, which means in her first enlistment, she made enough rank to retire on. By the time she was at her 18-year mark, she had made E9, and when she was tired of being the Command Master Chief, she threw her badge on the CO's desk and told him exactly what to do with it. Now, if you know anything about Lisa Spotwood, you know there are two things she simply will not do. 1, waste time, and 2, suffer fools. Master Chief Spotwood is a legend in these Coast Guard streets. But after writing number 1 on 2 service-wide exams, E8 and E9, after being the first woman chief on a 270 cutter, after becoming the first black woman in her rate to make E7, E8, and E9, and after working an entire shift in the galley while in labor, well, why wouldn't she be? Master Chief Spotwood may have retired in 2006, but her dedication to making the Coast Guard a safer, fairer, more welcoming place for black women has never stopped or wavered. Y'all can stop asking me when I'm going to drop the episode with the Master Chief, because here it is. That's why this week it is my privilege and my pleasure to put the spotlight on Spotwood. Friend, how's it going?
Wonderful, wonderful. And you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Thank you for sitting down with me and having this conversation. I really appreciate you making time on your schedule. I know you got stuff to do. Thank you for doing this as well.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All right. So, for this interview, I think you agreed to give your real name, rank, and branch of service.
Yes.
That's what's up. So, Master Chief Lisa Spotwood, what is your connection to the service? Like, how long were you in? Which branch were you in? And did you grow up around any veterans?
Okay. I was in for 20 years, and I'm retired. I'm a retired United States Coast Guard Master Chief.
Whoa! Come on.
And far as growing up around family, my whole family has been in all of the branches except for this Space Force. But, far as the other branches, I have several that were in the Marines, a whole lot in the Army, several that was in the Navy. I have Air Force, so pretty much have grown up around with all of that. And as far as our family history, dealing with the military goes all the way back to the Civil War. My grandfather, he actually was in the Confederate Army. And a lot of people ask, well, the Confederate Army, but he was here. He was a free man in the state of Virginia. And during that time, all the free men were required to join the Confederate Army to fight against the Union Army. And he did not receive his pension until he was 82 years old. So this was several years after he was in the Confederate Army.
He was 82
yes.
before he got his first pension check?
Yes.
That had to have been like, all right, so the Civil War was 1863, if I'm, all right.
To 65.
And so this had to have been like the 1900s when he got his first pension check.
He got it in the 1800s, but it was like, because he died, I want to say it was like 1926, something like that. He was born in 1841.
He was a young man going to war.
Yes.
For a country that didn't like him that much.
Yes. But as a free man, he was required to do that.
Right on. No, I get that.
So, and that's the early experience when we talk about family in the military. that we have documented.
That is amazing. All right. So, how do you feel about your time in service? How do you feel about your time in uniform? Does anything in particular stand out?
Well, a whole lot of stuff stands out, but you're not going by the questions.
I'm sorry, I didn't go in order.
Yeah, and I need you to.
I'm sorry.
Because I'm in order.
I gave Master Chief a list of questions before we started this interview, so she could be very prepared. And I rearranged the order of the questions because I like throwing people surprises. And so
well, she's the one that got the surprise.
Yeah, so I hit Master Chief with the surprise order right here. Did you find your place?
Huh?
Did you find your place? How do you feel about your time in service? Question.
You better go to the stuff that you sent me. Semper Paratus.
Man.
And one thing I do want to say is if I had to do the Coast Guard all over again, I would.
You would. All right. So, was the Coast Guard your first choice?
No, the Coast Guard initially, after high school, I wanted to join the Air Force, but my father did not want me joining the military, so it was 4 years after I graduated from high school that I joined the Coast Guard.
What did you do in those 4 years?
Became a mother.
Congratulations.
Okay, became a mother, and I actually worked pretty much a year before I went into the Coast Guard, and I was making refrigerators from scratch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a story I didn't think I was going here. You made refrigerators?
From scratch. First, that metal piece that bends in the box, I was the one riveting the ends to turn it into a box.
You made them from IKEA, and I wouldn't have I still would have been amazed. You said you made it from scratch.
Yeah,
wow.
The installation, everything.
All right. So, if your refrigerator broke right now, would you be able to fix it?
That would be an electrical problem. Not a manufacturing problem, okay?
Right. Look, hey, you know more about that than I do, so I'm sorry for the stupid question. Did you make any friends while you were in service? Any black lady friends?
A whole lot.
Do you keep up with them?
Yes, I do. I might see them in the supermarket. I might see them in a Walmart. We end up hugging. We haven't seen each other in a while, and I also have close friends that I talk to on the phone. They live out of state, but I keep up with everybody.
Right on. Do you remember how you met any of your black lady friends?
Well, we're going to go back. I guess I could go back to A school.
Okay.
Is when I first, because, the first unit I was at, I was the only black female at the unit. And come to find out, I was the only single black female on the island, Long Beach Island, up in New Jersey. But when I went to A school, I ended up meeting several black females. They weren't in the cook rate, or it was subsistence specialist rate back then. But one of them that comes to mind is Shawan Bellamy Knox. And I went to A school. She was a yeoman, and I was a subsistence specialist. But we went through school at the same time, and she's one of my dear friends still to this day. And one of the other ladies that went to yeoman school during that time, Tracy Mitchell, I actually went to high school with her. So she's still in the area. I don't keep up with her, but
look, I'm just glad that you made some yeoman friends. That as a yeoman,
I got friends in every rate. Okay, whether the DCs, damage controlman, like Tony Cunningham.
Okay.
Cunningham. She's your first African American DC chief.
Come on.
senior chief. Okay.
She better get it.
But yeah, I've actually met most of, different ones. I haven't been isolated. Let me just say that much.
I can tell. So you began your village in A school. That was the first time you befriended another person that looked like you, or that you were able to befriend someone else that looked like you.
Well, I think in A school I was more acquainted with them, but my first friendship would be when I went to my first unit, which was Air Station Clearwater in 1987, and it was an SK2 named Deirdre Green, and I would, really put her as being part of, the village in the early stages. She literally took me under her wing my whole 2 years while I was at the air station. And she was from Tampa, so on the weekends that I did not have to work, I used to go over to her house and hang out the whole weekend and stuff. And she was my family down there. I didn't have any family in Florida, in the state of Florida. So that was the closest thing to family for me. And we still remain real good friends after all these years. It's been 36 years, and we're still very close friends.
Nice. So if I go to Florida and ask this lady, does she know Lisa Spotwood, she's not going to blank out on me?
Nope, you're not going to have that. You're not going to have that. She actually brags on me.
Right on.
But I will always be grateful, for the spot she had in my life back then.
Master Chief.
Yes.
Could you tell the award story? A story where you were tested, but you came out on top. You're the winner in this story.
Okay. Story that I remember is back in 1996. I was at base Portsmouth, and I had been there 4.5 years. And I always tell everybody, out of my 20 years in the Coast Guard, that was the hardest that I ever worked. And, I'm serious about that. Mm-hmm. I was at the MWR, I was running the gym, I was running the swimming pool, had the laundry that I had to change out of the machines and replenish it with laundry, items. And, I was also in charge of Portside, which did a lot of catering on the weekends and during the week. So, and I was the command drug and alcohol representative. So I was just doing all of this plus standing duty. OD duty. So, and I say that's the hardest I worked in my entire 20 years in the Coast Guard. But, I consider that one of my most challenging, because when it came time for me to, at the end of my tour, I had did up my own award, and my supervisor never turned it in.
What?
Yeah, that didn't happen. He didn't turn it in. The other thing prior to my end of tour is, here I was a first class subsistence specialist, and that would be a cook for, people that don't know. But they decided they were going to take me from the gym, which is where I, was based with MWR, and send me over to the club as an E6. And I went over to the club because the whole reasoning behind them sending me over there was for me to get back into the paperwork, because I was getting ready to go to a unit that, I would be involved with the paperwork again. But I get over to the club, and all they had me doing was cleaning the grill.
Wow.
So here I am, an E6 cleaning the grill. So I took myself back over to the gym, and that's where I sat for the last 9 months till the end of my tour. But, what also came to mind is they marked me low.
After making an E6 as a mess cook, they've had the audacity.
Yes, they marked me low. So during my checkout time, I was checking out with the captain on base, which was Robert Weaver. And, he's doing the checkout with me, and he was like, well, how was your, time here and everything? And I said, well, it was fine up until the last 9 months. So he just politely signed the checkoff sheet and sent me on my way. Didn't ask any questions.
Wow.
So then I had to go check out with the executive officer, which was Commander John Williams. So the same spiel. How was your tour here? And I said, it was fine up until the last 9 months, sir. So he decided to ask me questions.
Okay.
And the questions that I had to tell him was the fact about, them sending me over to the club and having me clean grills.
Mess cook. As an E6.
Well, I did not say it like that, but also, during our talk and everything, I also said, that I was speaking up. I said, this is not about me because, I'm going to move on. I'm going to do better, once I leave here. So it's not about me. But what I'm concerned about is the junior females that'll come behind me. And instead of letting them stay at the gym, they're sending them over to the club to do things like clean the grills. And, they're not really, keeping them involved. They're just having them do menial tasks. And, they were so, junior, that they may not speak out like I'm speaking out now. And this is why I'm speaking out. So I left it right there. But in that time, the executive officer, he actually went to the supply officer and he had my marks raised. And he also wrote up an award for me.
Nice.
So I left, that situation right there, and I was first class. And the next time I seen Commander John Williams, he was a captain. And he was actually my deputy captain when I showed up at the unit as a senior chief. Okay, so he was shot all the way from a first class E6 to a senior chief E8. But that's what he got. I said I'm going to be all right, and I was all right. And matter of fact, at that same unit, I made Master Chief, and I actually had Captain Johnny Williams pin my Master Chief stars on my collar. So that was one of my war stories, and it turned out positive for me.
It did. Look, you won. You got your marks raised, and
Yes.
you got an award.
And I got Captain Johnny Williams to pin my Master Chief stars on.
Word.
Very classic.
Look, that's a win. Master Chief,
Mm-hmm.
could you tell me something that you wish you had known before joining the service?
I wish I would have known about the Coast Guard. I had no idea. I didn't know nothing about the Coast Guard, and pretty much most of my life all of my life while I lived in the state of Virginia, I always lived within 10 minutes of the Coast Guard base, Portsmouth. And I had no idea until the year before I joined that it existed. So I wish I would have known about the Coast Guard, way before then. And perhaps I might have took my chances of defying my father and joining the Coast Guard, when I graduated high school.
Okay, so it's safe to say that you are the first member of your family to join the Coast Guard.
Actually, no.
No?
Yeah, I know I'm throwing things out there, but my grandfather's brother, he was a Coast Guard. He was in the Coast Guard, enlisted in the Coast Guard during World War II. Okay. So, no, I wouldn't be the first one.
Well, seeing as how that was your grandfather's
brother,
your
great uncle.
Your great uncle, it's understandable how you wouldn't know about the Coast Guard
growing
up.
Yeah, he was up in Jersey, so I didn't know. Matter of fact, I didn't even find out that he was a Coast Guard veteran until after I joined the Coast Guard. Never knew.
Can you tell me about a time when you learned a lesson that you weren't ready to learn?
Okay, we shall go there. While I was in the Coast Guard, I had married another active duty military member. So I was pretty much wearing the hat of an active duty member, and I was a chief at the time, and being a military spouse, so I was putting that hat on too. Mm-hmm. And was during that time I had just got stationed on the Coast Guard cutter Laguerre, and I had made my first patrol. And my husband was cheating, and during that time he got the female pregnant.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Lord.
So when I say very challenging, I know it wasn't nothing but God that kept me together, pretty much, finding out I didn't break down. My first time breaking down concerning this issue is the girl went down to the police station in Chesapeake, Virginia, and said that I was threatening her with bodily harm, even though I had nothing to say to the female. And so
let me pause the story right there. Yeah, for our listeners, Master Chief Spotwood is a very pretty lady. And if you know anything about street ethics, pretty girls really don't get into a lot of fights. So this is like an outlandish accusation for anybody to be making on her, because she's cute. Like, she's very pretty.
But I wouldn't have put my career in jeopardy for that. What happened. I'm not going to sit there and be fighting over him. That's his responsibility, his fault, not mine, right. And her issue with it was that when all of the stuff happened, I had a separation agreement drawn up. But within the separation agreement, I told him I will not divorce you until I'm off of the cutter, meaning that I don't have time to be going to court or dealing with, and I'm underway. So he had to wait 3 years until I got off the cutter, but a separation agreement was in place. And I guess that she didn't feel like waiting the 3 years. So like 2 months after the baby was born, here and present, she, went down and took filed these charges.
Wow.
Yes, wow.
Wow.
So I got a letter in the letter in the mail about, basically I had to go down to Suffolk's police department, and I went down there, and I went with my best friend. And I get down there, and that was the first time that I broke down concerning this matter. But they, informed me that she had took out filed a charge of threatening her with bodily harm, which I did not, and everything. But I did break down at the police station. The police officer was like, "Don't worry about this. Don't worry about that. Just, this is just the beginning." And they was trying to calm me down, and then they didn't want to put handcuffs. I said, "No, do your job," to get back. I had to get in the back of the police car.
You got handcuffed?
Yeah. I got fingerprinted and all.
They really booked you?
Yeah.
Over this accusation?
Yes. So,
at that point, never mind.
From the police precinct, we had to go down to where the jail was and book. And so, I was riding in the back of the police car, I'm telling, the police officer, put the handcuff, because that's procedure, Can't worry about me crying and all of that.
Oh my God.
So I get down there, and they fingerprint me and take my mug shot and everything.
Oh my God.
And the magistrate, he basically, he let me out on my own recognizance, and he actually scheduled my court date for when I was going to come off of patrol. I told him when we would be back, and he scheduled, the court date after that. And to give you a little backstory on that is I had already gotten a lawyer, and she was the one that had drew up the separation agreement. So I had to end up calling her to let her know what had happened. So she actually took over the case as far as me getting arrested. And this happened on a Friday evening, and we got underway on Monday for Fleet Week up in New York.
Oh my God.
So pretty much once I, and then we went on patrol. So once I came back in, court date was scheduled and everything. So in the meantime, this is what my lawyer did. She actually requested the library records, because apparently this girl she had got me kicked off the computer at the library.
Wow.
She shows up at the library, gets me kicked off the computer. So my lawyer had the library record subpoenaed to show that I had signed in a whole hour before she did. My lawyer had her supervisor subpoenaed because this girl was calling me and harassing me at my house, but she was on the job doing it. And the supervisor also heard that, who she got pregnant by was married, So all of this happened, and my command was like basically the commanding officer, the executive officer, whoever you need to show. We both will show up. So we show up in court and everything, and the lady that had me charged or filed charges, she decided she told him she wanted to drop the charges. And I was like, oh no, I want this hurt, So my lawyer says to me, let her drop the charges. You want to go after her after that, you can do it. And, the judge starts laughing, and everything. So the charges were dismissed right then and there. And pretty much, from there it was quite an obstacle for me. But moving forward from there, I, learned I had to put my big girl panties on, which is what I did. Okay, and that incident actually taught me if I could survive this, I can survive anything.
Lord.
Okay, and it gave me the strength, like, I didn't miss one patrol out of that whole situation. I continued to advance in rank, because after that I made Senior Chief. I made Master Chief, so, nothing held me back.
You got booked as a chief?
Mm-hmm. Yes. You said booked, I got arrested. There's a difference between booked is, on the ship far as, captain's mast. Arrested is in civilian court.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. But it made me the strong and independent woman that I am today.
Look, that'll put strength on anybody. I'm really glad that you had a good chain of command at that time. Like that was a solid. That's good that they were able to. They wanted to show up for you. They did. They did. Okay.
You're gonna find out a lot of things. So
that was hilarious. Just finding out that you got arrested because you are such a sweet person. You're just so nice and mild mannered. Like this is not you. All right.
One thing about the military, I've always been about my business.
Clearly.
So.
Clearly. Were there any resources that helped you along the way? Any people, groups, organizations, friends, connections, anything like that?
Yes. I've always had mentors from being junior enlisted all the way up through Master Chief. Okay. And I've had great shipmates throughout. And far as when I look back, it's just so many, even the and I don't know what you would call a work life. The lady there, Laura Jennings.
Okay.
She was so instrumental to me during this time with the ex-spouse, I was supposed to be going to her for counseling, and she was like, well, you feel like you're going to harm yourself or anybody else? And I was like, no. And she got down to business. Well, I need you to change your bank account. This is the lawyer here, So, and I always thank her. I mean, if it wasn't for her, she made sure, she said, and get that separation agreement done. And she, and she was on it. She was asking me every time I met with her, did you do it? And I was doing it. But, when I say, mentors like Vince Patton, has been a mentor. I first met him in person. I knew who he was, but I was a first class.
Okay.
And he was the one that told me that I was making chief. He came to me in February and said I was making chief March the 1st, 1998. And he also told me that I had orders to the Cutter Laguerre. We'll talk about that a little bit later time. But, he, like I said, he's been very inspirational as far as my Sea Daddy, which is Lieutenant Commander Charlie Marino. He was a EMC when I first met him, and when I was on the forward, and the engineers, back when I was a second class subsistence specialist, they literally took me under their wings on the forward. No, I mean seriously, the engineers, the chiefs, and
Nice.
yes.
I love that for you.
So when we talk about other people that I looked up to or inspired me, Pam Altry, she is the first African American engineer in chief in the Coast Guard.
Come on.
Yes. And she had made senior chief, so I always looked up to her. I had a big picture inside my locker on the Laguerre, and I kept it up there until I made senior chief.
And just as a sidetrack, I know this isn't on the list, but I think you can answer it like off the cuff. So you mentioned you had a sea dad, and I know you have many sea babies, like you are a sea mother. Is it possible to have more than one sea daddy and sea mommy?
Yes, it is, but I'm just telling you, I don't have a sea mommy.
You don't?
I have a sea daddy.
That's all right.
Because you also have to realize, we're talking about ships. Pam would have been a sea mommy because, me and her was doing the do. And I love her to death. She calls me her little sister.
Aww.
And stuff. And I call her my big sister. But she was more of a friend, and I really, admired her, which I still do. She was very inspirational to me as far as, like I said, senior chief. That's who I looked up to.
Right on. Okay. So one sea daddy.
Yes, I have one sea daddy. I have many sea babies. And my sea daddy, his son was my sea baby, meaning that his father was my sea daddy on the forward, and when
so this was his biological father was
right, my sea daddy.
Hold on, his sea granddad.
Well, what happened is he was a little kid when I was on the forward, and his dad was my sea daddy. And then when he came to the Laguerre, my sea daddy called me, "Hey, Luke's coming over there. Look out for him. Take him under your wing." And that's what I did. So literally from boot camp, and
I love it.
I love his story because he went all the way from seaman apprentice and he retired as a lieutenant commander.
Come on.
See, that's the joy in seeing your sea babies just sprout.
I love it. In your time in service, were you able to establish sisterhood? Were you able to find sisterhood? Were you able to establish? I feel like I know the answer to this one, but it's a hard.
Well,
yes.
I'm gonna talk about Deirdre Green again, but mine started, in the first part of my career, the first year of my career, and my sister, when I say sister, far as Deirdre Green. She didn't have any sisters, and I didn't have any sisters, so we literally have been sisters since 1987.
Y'all actual sisters then.
Right.
Look, after so many years, y'all become actual sisters.
And like I said, before that, she literally took me under her wing, and we're still sisters, here it is 36 years later.
Love it. I love it.
And, it is so interesting that she was my support when I was a junior enlisted, member as an E4 showing up at a unit. She was my support because I didn't have any family down there or anything. She was my family. Her mother, brothers, they were my family. Grandma Easter, her grandmother, that was my family,
Did you go to her place for the holidays?
I was at her place every other weekend. That's what I'm saying. I was around her brothers, her grandmother, and, I was around. That was the family for me.
How would you rate their sweet potato pie?
We come from North Carolina, so, as far as my mother's from North Carolina, and my auntie, my mother's sister.
So who made better sweet potato pie? Your C family
No,
or your family?
my family. I'm giving it to them. You know, but the interesting thing when we talk about sisterhood, although she was, she took me under her wings early in my career. After she retired from the Coast Guard, I have been there for her, supporting her, whether it's medical or whatever she might be going through. Yeah. And she's been retired since 1999, so that's how long,
Nice.
like 30, almost, it was over 30 years. What is 33 years? Yeah, that, as far as the support that I, have given her.
She retired in, all right, so
1999.
So you've known her longer as a retiree than you did as
Yes. Yes.
Lovely. That's real friendship.
Mm-hmm.
A tough situation where you were in, that another sister helped you out. Another black lady.
Okay. You want some more history?
Come on, I'm with it.
Angela McShann.
Okay.
Do you know who she is?
I feel like she's got a title. Is it going to be a Master Chief or is it going to be
She
like a
is your first African American female Coast Guard Master Chief.
Come on. You know her?
Yes.
All right.
Well, she's no longer with us.
Okay.
But she was a senior chief when I met her. I was stationed in Yorktown. She was there in Yorktown, and I had just, we're going back to Vince Patton, that he, pretty much the issue that we were dealing with. And it was February because we were at a Black History. Vince Patton wasn't there. And I'm not sure if Angela McShann was there, but my issue was that I was making chief and they were getting ready to send me to my 3rd land unit. And I wanted a cutter. Okay, so I was, adamant about getting a cutter, because had I been a male, they would have sent me to a cutter. It's not funny.
It is funny that you were fighting for your right to get on.
As a female, yes. Yeah. I always had to fight for my cutters.
No, I feel like it's funny that you would want to get on a cutter.
I loved being underway. I loved being on cutters. Even after I left base Portsmouth, I put in for the buoy tenders.
Lord.
Okay? Wouldn't give it to me. They sent me to Yorktown. No, land unit. That's the second one. So when I made chief, they was trying to send me to a 3rd land unit. And I was like, oh no. But, I was divorceless. So at that time, it was a Black History celebration in Yorktown in the auditorium. And my old CO, he was a commander at the time, Patrick Stillman. But at the time when I seen him again in 98, well, I seen him throughout the years or whatever, but he had made admiral.
Wow.
So, I'm telling him about this too. I'm talking to Angela McShann about, me getting my 3rd land unit, and I'm trying to get a cutter. So Admiral Stillman told me, he says, when you get back to your office, I need you to call Master Chief Patton. And I had not met Master Chief Patton in person yet. So I called him when I got back to the office and, explained the situation. And with Angela McShann being involved, Master Chief of the Coast Guard, retired Vince Patton. He was the command Master Chief. I think it was for MLC land at the time. And Admiral Stillman, they made phone calls. And the calls went all the way up to the Chief of Staff, which is the 3rd person in charge after the Vice Commandant.
Christ.
And out of that, and I'll say, far as Admiral Stillman, I believe that he always saw the light in me as a 2nd-class petty officer. And when I made first on his cutter, instead of getting transferred, I chose to stay, and finish my tour out. And that's what I did, But he always saw the light in me. He always checked on me. I can remember being on the Laguerre, and this is on the Laguerre, years later, he's walking down to the pier, and I done left the cutter, Laguerre, and went on up to, I think it was Port of York or whatever. We had pulled into the pier in Yorktown, and, pretty much when he showed up at the pier and he's asking for me, the command got, scared, whatless, okay? But he was just showing up to, check on me and everything, because after that happened, I actually, Master Chief Patton, he showed up in February, towards the end of February, and he was like, he showed up, gave me his coin in my hand, and he said, "Congratulations, you're making chief on the 1st of March. And this was 1998. And he says, "And you also got orders to the Cutter Laguerre, Coast Guard Cutter Laguerre."
Come on.
So this situation, like I said, I didn't know it went all the way up to the Chief of Staff and headquarters. But what was very, far as the situation would have been, it would have been the first time they would have had female chiefs on the 270s. Okay, so I was the test project, and I was also the first female chief to be billeted on the pier in Portsmouth out of any other cutters. So basically, I did my whole tour on the Laguerre, and it was me and another female, and then when she made warrant, they had another female come up there, but we were the test projects, and now because of that, they have female chiefs on all the cutters. They can be billeted on all the cutters. They've actually turned some of the 270s where they used to just have all male E6 and below, and they have most of the cutters have E6 and below females now with the males. So those were the changes because it worked out so well and no issues, no problems.
Tell me about a time when you experienced something that you know to be unique to you because you're a black woman.
Okay, and that's an interesting take on that because, coming in the Coast Guard, I used to always, from E1 to E9, I always said that I never experienced racism or racial discrimination my whole time in the Coast Guard. What I experienced was gender discrimination or gender bias or prejudice. And it was only maybe a few years ago that I realized that me as a black woman, most likely my race actually intersected with my gender. If I had to look back on things, was it because I was a female or was it because I was a black female? Okay, my first incident was when I was stationed at Barnegat Light, New Jersey, and I had done so well as a non-rate. I was a seaman apprentice there. I made seaman. I was just moving along, and I had already taken my little tests. We had booklets back then, but I had taken it up to E6. I had actually taken the end of course test for subsistence specialist, which was cook, but I chose to, even though I had taken it, I could have struck at the unit. I chose to go to Petaluma to go to A school so that I could be well-rounded.
Right on.
But during my marks there, and that was as a seaman, I had a whole bunch of 7s as a seaman.
Get it.
And one of my marks was
7 is the highest you can go on
yes.
on your marks. So she had a phenomenal
yes.
marks.
But one of my marks was a 6 instead of a 7, and it had to do with the bulk of my hair. Okay, and I accepted that. But as a black female, we had so many challenges. I'm living on this island, and it's 2 black women that are married to black coasties. I'm the only single female. And We didn't have no, dark and lovely perms and Revlon perms for our hair. So yes, it was challenging.
Yeah.
Okay. My second incident, which I, equated it to gender discrimination, was I showed up at Air Station Clearwater and I was pregnant. And, the captain of the base, Captain Shorey, yes, I remember names. But Captain Shorey, he was like, well, basically you got to balance, your family with the job, and all of that. Okay, I understand that. I got it. I'm not going to let nothing interfere with this job. And I meant that. So,
the fact that he felt the need to even say that to you, though.
Right. Now, my thing is, had I been a white female showing up, when I look back now, and it was so much, I equated it, like I said, to gender discrimination. But if I put myself being a black female in it, would that have happened to a white female?
Right.
So that's why, I say that, my race actually intersected with my gender. But the second incident that happened, like I said, I showed up at Air Station Clearwater pregnant. And, the captain said that, but it didn't stop there. I was actually duty cooking, lifting roasting pans in that galley until I was 7.5 months pregnant. You heard me, 7.5 months pregnant.
Look here.
Okay, and I was in labor and I went to work.
You stop it.
I went to work and I did not leave to go to the hospital until 9:30 that morning.
You stop.
And I had my baby that evening. Okay?
There is no way a white woman would have had to do all that for that long.
Yeah.
That's heavy lifting.
Yeah. So after all of this, I get marked by the chief, Chief Kaluan. I can remember names.
Well, I see.
But yeah, he marked me low.
No.
And his reason for marking me low was because the crew had to take up my slack when I had doctor's appointments. But I had to go over his head, and I went over his head to Mr. Lewis, and he was the support officer, and I went over his head, and Mr. Lewis agreed with me that basically if one of your other coworkers would have broke their arm, and had to go to doctor's appointments, that wouldn't be counted against them, so it should not be counted against you. But where I really took heed with this was I was pregnant. And I literally lived right around the corner from Air Station Clearwater. I mean, walking distance around the corner. And I literally, on my weekends off, that Saturday morning, I would get out of my bed and come in there, start breakfast cooking on my weekends off because the other cooks that were supposed to be there were out drinking the night before.
Indeed.
And they were too drunk to come in, so I had to go up there, get breakfast started and everything until they came in. And I got marked low because supposedly they were supposed to be taking my slack, but I was taking their slack. And, the other thing is, my doctor's appointments, I would make them on my days off. So nobody had to take up no slack from me. Not until towards the end of my pregnancy, and by then I wasn't duty cooking anymore. I was day working.
Dear God. So you were picking up slack for drunkies, and that's not a problem. But you being pregnant, that's mark-worthy.
Right, but my marks were erased because of that by Mr. Lewis.
Look.
Ain't God good?
Yeah, and also I hate some of these people that you talk about.
It's life experiences,
I hope they're not enjoying their retirement. So, how could your experience with the service have been improved?
I think my experience could have been improved if anybody that had to do with me getting assigned to a new unit and what unit I got assigned to, if they would have let me shine. And by that I mean every time I put in for different jobs. It's just like I put in for base Portsmouth, and I had the detailer telling me that I wasn't going to make rank because I was going to base Portsmouth. Well, I can show you that I'm going to make rank because I'm going to study for these tests. Plus, when they having training down on the pier, as far as the SAT team shows up, I took my behind down to the pier to learn, whatever new thing might be coming out. But I always, kept up with everything, Other issues, I always wanted to be a recruiter, and I thought I would make a good recruiter because I had been at large units, small units, on the cutters. I was a single parent, It was so much that I had to offer, but they never let me be a recruiter. I wanted to, civil rights, I was putting in for these jobs, but and when I say they, whoever had to endorse me, as far as my next my supervisor was marketing official, they didn't want to endorse me. I put in for command drug and alcohol representative. I could do it as a collateral duty, which I got to do twice at different units, but as far as doing it as a full-time job, no. And command chief, when I was on the cutter Laguerre, the captain told me me and him weren't on the same wavelength. And at the time, I was the chief of the boat because I was the senior chief.
Wait, were you the senior chief?
Yes.
Or a senior chief?
No, I was the senior chief on the boat.
E8?
No, I wasn't E8. I was the chief.
You're just senior ranking chief.
Yes,
okay.
So chief of the boat.
Gotcha.
I had another situation where I was made command master chief when I was in Miami, and I actually kept the job for about 2 months. And then I went into the captain's office and threw the badge on his desk. And because basically, and I'll say this, my feelings, it used to be called Command Enlisted Advisor. And when it was Command Enlisted Advisor, they were there for the people. But when they changed it to Command Chief, Senior Chief, and Master Chief, they were there for the command. And one thing that I was never about was kissing butt. And like I told, and it was Captain Fox. He was my CO at the time when I threw the badge on his desk. Basically I could do this job without a badge. But what I find interesting in both of those situations, as far as going for command chief and not getting it because we weren't on the same wavelength, and me giving up the badge as a command master chief, is both commands kept me very involved with what was going on, especially if it had to do with females. And I had no title.
Okay.
I had no badges, but I was the first one that they called into their stateroom or their office. And pretty much, chief handled this, master chief handled it, And this was without the badge and the title.
Lord.
So, but when I say I felt like I was held back, is I never got to do anything but be a cook. And it was almost if even, the people, detailers and all of that, it's like they didn't want me to go out to cook great. I know I cook good. I knew the paperwork, but I wanted to broaden my horizons, and, they never let me do it. So I always felt like I was being held back because of that, No, because I say I had so much more to offer, and I.
Do you think you were a better leader than the leaders you grew up under?
Yes.
Good.
And I say that because, especially in the culinary field, I'll say it just like that. Mm-hmm. I never had a strong chief the whole time for my whole career, and I made chief, so I didn't need one at that point, but I never had a strong chief. Like, they were all weak, and when I call out people that actually mentored me as far as the culinary rate at the time, I had a first class, and he was there at that air station Clearwater, and he actually, when I was a third class, showed me all the paperwork and put me in the Jack of Dust position to do it. Once I went to C school, it was a Master Chief SS, but I didn't work directly for him. But the deal was, he said, if you carve my steamship round at my retirement, I'll make sure you get put in for C school. And C school was paper management, and he did it. Wow. So as a third class, which I wasn't supposed to go to the school until I made second class, I went as a third class. So, but he was, I consider him a mentor and stuff. But like I said, the chief, when I went to the forward, the chief, I'm making faces right now because it was garbage.
She was rolling her eyes nice and hard.
Yeah. And then when I showed up in Yorktown, I had a chief that pretty much he took credit for everything that we did. And, he pretty much kind of worked off our backs, and gave people favors. We worked a whole lot there too, but I did enjoy being there. I learned so much. But he was another one. He gave me low marks when I showed up. And he said, well, that's because these are your first marks.
No, indeed.
Okay. What happens is I can show y'all better than I can tell you. You ain't going to sit there. I stand up for myself, but some things I got to show y'all better than I can tell you. So that's where I advanced to chief.
Right on.
And this was the same man. Like I said, he went to the cutter beside me. And, he was like, well, I just tested for senior chief. When you going to test? I said, I just did too. So he said, well, you better not beat me. Well, guess what? I wrote number 1. And, the moral to that story is he didn't even make senior chief because of me. No, he didn't, because of me. Because I went to the, he didn't make it off of that particular service-wide, but he was on the list when I went on the SAT team as a senior chief, as an E8. But what he was doing was cooking his books and everything. And guess what? I got a call, and I showed up at his unit. And the investigation that I did on him and report that I had to turn in was 76 pages long. I can still remember the number.
I love it.
Okay.
I love it.
And far as, how he was cooking the books and everything, the inventory cards, I was right down to everything, So basically they took him off the list for E8.
Amen.
He was working at the Port of York in Yorktown. They took him out of there too. Anything to deal with money, so they put him in the barracks. So he didn't have to deal with no money. People was worried about their careers after that point.
He was cooking the books and nothing else afterwards.
Right.
Oh, Lord. That story makes me so happy. I'm so glad I heard it.
I mean, it was, when I say dealing with that, like I told them, everything that I had, done as far as the investigation is strong enough that CJIS should have been on board.
Yeah.
Yeah. But his CO was getting ready to get a cushiony job, so that's why they weren't.
My goodness. I just wanted to circle back real quick. Now, you did describe your weak chiefs, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say weak chiefs, do you mean they were weak all the way around or just weak one way? And what I mean by that is...
They were weak all the way around. I don't have to, think about that. When you got, like one of my chiefs on the forward... He was like, he really didn't speak that much, and the mess attendant, and I'm being politically correct, but the mess attendant could have said "boo," and okay, that kind of
Lord.
Weak.
Okay, weak all the way around.
Yes, and I only had who was it? The Kaluan. That's the one that marked me low. He was weak, and when I say weak is. I should have learned something from my chiefs and my rate, and I didn't learn anything except for how not to be.
Well,
No, seriously, I didn't learn nothing, and I always believed that you're supposed to be teaching and guiding the ones under you. Like, my people always made sure they were working and operating on the rank above them all the time.
Right on. You are better than what you were brought up under.
The engineers took me under their wings, the engineering chiefs, and that's how I learned to be a chief.
Well, right on.
I always give them credit.
Right on. All right. So you made a lot of rank in your time in service, and we're going to get into that. However, for right now, how was the treatment you received changed with your rank? Because you had all the ranks.
I had all the ranks, but at the same time, let me first say that I always stood up for myself from E2 through E9, but I do feel there's always been challenges and obstacles that have been in my way through each rank that I was, and even up to E9.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because, a prime example for E9, people say, well, what about E9? Well, I showed up at Base Miami Beach, and I was supposed to be the branch chief, not that food service officer. And when I showed up, the previous Master Chief had cooked the books
Lord.
so bad. Now, why are you cooking books and you got somebody from the SAT team showing up? Okay, so I did my investigation there, even though nobody asked me. So what was said to me is, well, he was here longer than you, and he knows what was going on. Well, what was going on was you were claiming more flight rations than the air station did, and you're a base. Okay, what's going on is that I want to say it was like 2,500 something in the hole.
Lord.
Okay. So it took, pretty much just skimming how I had to do things to get us out the hole and everything. And I did get us above that 10% line out of the hole, and then to get us back on board. But, like I said, that was told to me. He was here longer, and then you gave him a higher medal than the commendation medal.
No, indeed.
As he left out. And he was on terminal. Did y'all call him back? No. Mm-mm. So, I had a problem with that. Hear me as a Master Chief, and then on top of it, I trained my supply officer and the ex-executive officer on how to check the books and the paperwork. Now, after I've trained y'all had the audacity to check my stuff out. They did it for 6 months straight. After I showed y'all how to do it. But since that time, the captain, since we've retired, he apologized. I know it was on his conscience, because even at my retirement, he had it right down to the cent of, far as the discrepancy and everything that I found. So, but, when, they always say rank has its privilege, but I felt like, I've had a lot of challenges, being female, being the only black female. I mean, as you move up the ranks, it gets smaller,
Right.
And one thing that I've always told people, I have always wanted to be respected as Lisa Spotwood before the rank that I wear on my collar. And that goes today. And I've been like that since I was an E2. So, as when I say I'm down to earth, I want to be respected as a person first before my rank.
Let's say you were just starting your life on your own, just starting out, and you were presented with the chance to join the service right now, today. Knowing what you know, would you join?
Now, you said today.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why you couldn't say back then?
Okay, well, knowing what you know now, would you join the service? Would you have joined the service then?
Well, my answer initially was absolutely. I would have joined. As I told you before, I always regretted not joining, right after high school. Took 4 years from high school until I actually joined.
You still joined very young, like you said.
I was 20.
You graduated high school at 16, Master Chief.
Okay, but I was 20.
You weren't even old enough to drink, and you was like gun-ho for the service.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't old enough to drink when I got in the service,
Yeah.
So,
Like you were still very young. That's still a baby's age to me. I already know the answer to this next question.
well, I can still give it to you.
But for our listeners,
Mhm.
like, and the answer is going to be so obvious once we get into it. But if you had a daughter or any young impressionable black girl in your life that you cared about, and she was considering a life in the military, would you let her join?
Yes. And actually, my daughter enlisted in the United States Coast Guard 14 and a half years ago.
Right on. And that lady is all the way up to Chief now.
Yes.
She is also not playing games. And the next question: how do you feel about your time in uniform?
Okay. I loved every bit of it, and every bit of my time in uniform, even with all the challenges and obstacles that were in my way.
All right. So the good outweighed the bad.
Yes.
All right. That's what's up.
Yeah, the bad was really minuscule compared to the good and what I got out of it.
That's a winning experience. That's a win. All right. Now I want to go back to your service wide, and you're moving up in rank very fast. You moved up in rank quickly, like expeditiously. You wasted absolutely no time making rank. Could you please tell our listeners your advancement pace story? Like it's phenomenal.
Okay, well, I of course, when you go to recruit training, you're an E1 there, but once you graduate, you come out as a E2 or E3. It depends. I came out as an E2. Seaman apprentice. When I showed up in my unit, and actually it was Group Sandy Hook. Somebody told me just to order your course as soon as you get there and take them, and I followed their advice. So as soon as I showed up at Station Barnegat, I ordered my courses, and 2 weeks later, my course for seaman came in. I took that. 2 weeks after that, I took my MR. They were called at the time military requirements for E3. Took that, so I actually had these courses passed within a month and a half of showing up at the unit.
Nice.
And within like 4 months, I already had everything signed off because we had items that we had to get checked off on a list and had that done. So I had to wait around 2 months to actually be advanced to E3. And from getting once I got advanced to E3, I actually took my military requirements all the way up to E6. I took my end of course test for subsistence specialist 3rd class, and upon passing that, I could have stayed at Station Barnegat and struck SS3, which is 3rd class. The subsistence specialist is cook. But I wanted to go to A school in Petaluma, California, so that I could be well-rounded as a assistant specialist. So I showed up there like a year after I had joined the Coast Guard, like it was February the 3rd. So about a week and a half after I joined the Coast Guard, a year and a week and a half.
You have a wonderful memory.
Yes. So I was there from February to March. Upon the completion of A school, I was advanced to E4. And that's where I showed up at Air Station Clearwater, and it was in May of '87 that I showed up at Air Station Clearwater. Like I said, I was a E4 there. Within 6 months, I had taken the service wide for E5, so I had made E5.
The first opportunity you had,
yes,
you made it.
Yes, and the same thing. Well, that was actually 2.5 years is when I was advanced from the time I came, enlisted, in the Coast Guard. So 2.5 years I made E5.
Lord.
4.5 years in, I made E6.
Lord.
And at six and a half.
In one, hold on, 4 years?
4.5.
That's one enlistment.
Yes.
That's one whole. In one enlistment, you made E6.
Yes.
All right. Please continue.
Okay, and 6.5 years I started testing for E7. I did not have enough time in service, rank, rate, or anything, and I was competing against people that had dinosaur points, but I wrote number 3 on that service wide, and I got bumped back to 36.
Jesus.
So it would take me 6 more years to actually make E7, and I made it at 12.
The first chance she could have made it, you did.
So, and at that time I started setting a target that, hey, I got to be within the top 10. And I actually wrote number 5 on the service wide for Chief, and I got bumped back to 7. So, but I made it. And from there, I just really took off running. Far as senior chief, I made that in 15 years, and I wrote number 1 on that service wide. And for Master Chief, I wrote number 1 on that service wide, and I made that in 18 years, or I was advanced in 18 years.
Christ.
And I wanted to, also say my goal when I raised my right hand upon enlisting in the Coast Guard was to do just 20 years and retire, and to make Master Chief or E9 within those 20 years. So once I had been advanced at 18 years in, I put my request for retirement in, and 2 years later I retired at 20.
Wasted no time, not a second left behind. I love it. Wait, and you scored number 1 on the service wide.
Right.
Twice.
Yes.
At senior and master, and that couldn't have been easy. It sounds like a lot of studying. It sounds like a lot of book work.
Well, yes, it's a lot of book work, and I was, carrying like 3 and 4 inch binders with me everywhere, like it was my Bible. I could be in the club, I could be out on a, Liberty Port call with my binder.
You stop. You were not in a club
300,
with a binder.
yes, 365 days of the year.
Lord.
It was like my Bible.
This is my rifle. This is my booklet.
Right. But I mean, at that time, it's 150 questions on the service wide, and I was getting 125 right.
That is
so
unheard of.
But I, felt like I had to do that because I didn't have any time in the service, time in the rate, and like all these other people, they had sea time, they had time in service, time and rate, all of that. I was lacking in those areas, so the only place that I could make changes was taking that service wide. And one of the things I do want to tell people is it's a lot of people out there taking these service wides because they're book smart. And I wasn't one of those, I literally studied, but not only was I book smart, but I knew I could cook. I knew my stuff, meaning, far as the book, I could tell you, what manual stuff was in, what chapter, what page, what paragraph, all of that. But I was well-rounded far as cooking and everything. People will tell you about my cooking. No, I'm serious, and I literally cooked from being an E4 all the way through E9. Like,
Oh, you say good?
yes. What happens is I don't believe, or I'll say I didn't believe in once you make E7 or E6, walking around holding a coffee cup with your hand in your pocket. I'm a firm believer on leading by example. And if they can see Chief Spotwood lifting boxes that had the number 10, them giant cans, and it was 6 in each case,
Lord.
living it on my shoulder, taking it on the ship, then with that, you started getting junior officers. You started getting other chiefs doing this because I was leading by example. If they seen me do it, then they would start doing it, and that's what they did. Okay? And like I said, as far as cooking, I did my paperwork in the afternoon. I was in that galley in the kitchen with my cooks. You have to lead by example. You have to show them that you care in order for them to care, because what I do find is a lot of supervisors don't take the time up with their people, And I was all about taking the time up with my people, and I was like, you better not put nothing out on that line that you're not willing to eat yourself. And I meant that. I was all about training and everything, and sat down, had training. I was also about my people taking, basically having a lot of input, whether it was the menu, whether it was, work schedules, procedures, or anything. I wanted them to be able to take ownership and not just be one of those leaders that told you what you're going to do, when you're going to do it. I wanted them to have as much input, so that, and take ownership.
Spoiled these people.
It's not about spoiling, because even when I was at base Miami, it was nothing for me to be in the scullery. It was nothing for me to swab the deck.
Wow.
As a Master Chief.
Wow.
But once people see you, that they don't have a problem with doing it.
Right.
Because
You're right.
when I first showed up in Miami, they was like, especially the civilian mess attendants, they was like, she got us doing this, she got us doing that. But once they seen that I was willing to stand beside them, they had no problem, because, my salad bar, that was my pet peeve. Like I didn't want nothing put out the can. I don't believe in no fruit cocktail on my salad bar line. I want it fresh.
I love it.
So that meant they had to chop and cut and all of that. And if we had chicken the day before, or steak the day before, it was going to be out on that line. Okay? So, and, that's shrimp or whatever, So, but when I say leading by example, and, the other thing with the civilian mess attendants before I got there, they were just there to work. Nobody paid them no mind, and I included them in everything that I included my culinary specialists under me in, whether Christmas, whatever, I bought gifts for them too. I bought pizza, y'all come out here, like y'all not just civilian mess attendants and go on about your business somewhere. They were included. They were part of the team.
Right on.
So.
I love it. Man, you must have been one of a kind to work under. You had to have been. Recruitment and retention is down across all branches, and that's with all demographics. Black women are not excluded from that number. This was true even before the pandemic. Why do you think black women are disinterested in joining the military?
There's a number of things with that. When we talk about black women, we have so many things that we have to be concerned with. Not only family telling us not to join, but even as, like my situation as a black mother, somebody's got to keep the children, right?
Right.
When you're on patrol, so that becomes a obstacle for a lot of black mothers, even right now, I will say this much, not so much on the enlisted side, but on the officer side. You don't, the ones that have families and they have children, they'll make it, as black women, they'll make it to, commander. Okay, that's about the highest, but, and I can't fully say that. I'm just saying as black women. I mean, right. We're nurturers by nature, and we're always going to take the family into consideration, even if it means that, hey, we got to get out or whatever we got to do. So when we talk about, retention, the family comes before, whatever military branch. I was fortunate because of my village. Amen. I mean, I had my mother. I had my mother's sister, my auntie, my favorite auntie. I mean, pretty much when I got underway on them cutters, I had no worries. I didn't think about nothing. The kids were comfortable. Everything was, set. But it's a lot of people that don't have that. Especially, I couldn't have done it on the cutters if I was over in California somewhere, or if I was in Alaska or Seattle or Hawaii, because I wouldn't have had the family support. So it's so many females that don't have that support, especially dealing, with African Americans. We do have, I've seen some networks. My mother, I had a seaman. She had came off of one of the cutters, but she was working under me at the gym, base Portsmouth, and she needed a baby. She had 2 kids, little girl, baby girl, and a son, but my mother ended up keeping her kids. So we do a lot when we say that, when we talk about that village.
This is wonderful.
Even me maybe about 2 years ago, 3 years, got a phone call, Petaluma. Chief out there, he's a senior chief now, but Chief out there, he called me. He said, hey, got this new YN that's coming your way. She's a single mother. She doesn't know where she's going to live, child care. So I had did all my research and everything. And when she got, in the area, right before she got ready to report into base Portsmouth, I went to meet her at the Olive Garden. We sat down and everything. Aww. And, sat down and talked and everything. So, she said, okay, well, I got the apartment straight. And she was like, and I got, child care for her and everything. And then she says, but she couldn't, basically the child care wasn't going to start until a certain date or something, but she had to report in. So she says, well, you think that I can just bring the baby when I check in? I said, oh, H no. I says, I will be up there. What time you going to check in? I will be up there, and I will sit out in the personnel office in the lobby, and I'll watch the baby till you do your checking in. You will not be walking around with this baby on your hip checking in. And that's what happened.
It would have made check-in go a lot quicker.
Yeah, no, that's what literally happened. This was maybe about 3 years ago.
That's beautiful. Wait, 3 years, 2020?
It was right before the pandemic had hit. Was it 20 or 2019?
It was 2020.
Okay. So it must have been that December before. It was right before it hit.
But you said base Portsmouth.
Right.
So, all right.
She checked in like that January. Okay. And I think the pandemic didn't hit until that February.
Well, everything went on lock in March.
Okay. But, yeah. So, but, I just one of the things I was trying to say with her is, you cannot be showing up checking in to personnel with a baby attached to your hip, because the baby wasn't walking. I mean, she was under a year. That's what I'm saying. She was
went through A school with
her mother kept the baby while she was in A school, and then she went and got the baby, but the baby was like, I want to say by that time 7 months.
Lord, this is a baby.
Yes.
All right.
So, I mean, and that's the kind of stuff that, when I say we do, we do.
Right on. Right on. All right, Master Chief. If you were conducting this interview from where I'm sitting, what question would you have asked you that I have not gotten around to asking you?
Well, I'm going to tell you that I think you have covered everything. And I've covered everything. You asked some good questions.
I appreciate it, Master
Very
Chief.
good.
Appreciate it.
And it causes you to think.
Like
I'm an old lady, so I got to think back,
Look, you remember dates and names and whatever happened on February 3rd. so don't do that old lady thing with me. It's not going to work. I've met you. All right. Master Chief, respectfully request to know, is there anything you would like to leave our audience with? Ooh.
No, you don't have me stumped. What I've truly learned, far as being in the Coast Guard, and it can apply to civilian life, is anything is possible. I learned that, and I've learned just so much that I still can use today or tell people about today.
Love it. Anything is possible. You're right.
It is. I mean, you see that all the way from being assigned to your first ship, and then you got that watch station quarters billet, and you got all these jobs that your name is here, and all these jobs. How am I going to learn all of this? But once you continue to do it, it just becomes second nature. You don't think about where you got to go, what you got to put on. You just go. But, very challenging in the beginning. So when I say anything is possible, anything is possible.
I believe. Thank you, Master Chief. With your encouraging self.
I mean, if you put your mind to it.
All right. Well, thank you for sitting down and talking to me. This was informative. It was very entertaining. You have a very interesting life and life story. Yeah. And that concludes this episode of the Seasoned Vet Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. And a special thank you to retired Master Chief Lisa Spotwood for sharing her story and taking the time to make this interview possible. Now, if you are or know a Black Lady veteran who would like to sit down with me and be a part of the show, please email me at seasonedvetpodcast@gmail.com, or you can call or text message me at 713-254-0970. You can also find, follow, and inbox me, the Seasoned Vet, across all platforms of social media. At Real Seasoned Vet on Twitter, at Seasoned Vet Podcast on Instagram, at Seasoned Vet Podcast on TikTok, at Seasoned Vet on YouTube, Seasoned Vet on Facebook. Y'all, I'm so out there, I'm even on Spoutable. That's at the Seasoned Vet on Spoutable. Now, if you like what you heard, please like it, share it, rate it, and leave a good review on whatever platform you're listening to this on. And if you're hearing this episode on the day that it drops, then you're listening to it on November 6th, 2023. November 6th just happens to be a big day in Black history. That's probably because the first week of November is during election season. On this day in 1900, two brothers, James Weldon Johnson and John Roseman Johnson, composed what is recognized and revered as the Black National Anthem. And that song is Lift Every Voice and Sing. 20 years later, on November 6th, 1920, one of those brothers, James Weldon Johnson, became the executive secretary of the NAACP. On this day in 1973, Coleman Young was elected mayor of Detroit, Michigan, and Thomas Bradley was elected mayor of Los Angeles, California, making them not only the first two Black mayors of their respective cities, but also the first Black mayors of cities with over 1 million citizens. That's all for now. Thank you again for tuning in. And until next time, fall out.